Last time I left off was the arousal excitement phase, and we were describing some areas that when they're aroused, they have a description, and I want you to be able to identify those areas that are aroused. So we're going to continue. The nipple erection and the areola engorgement results from the muscle contraction within the nipple. So you're going to see the nipple stand up in men and women. All right. So some of these happen in men, but we're focusing on the women right now. But again, very similar things happen in the men. This happens in the early arousal phase and in the late excitement phase, and it continues into the late plateau phase, all the way into the plateau phase. The sex flush or the blood rash is spreading, reddening of the skin. You're going to see that. All right. Don't forget, you're looking for these signs. Remember, go back to my previous talk. We are looking for when we know the person's going to get close to the orgasm, so we know what to do to stimulate and what to do to make sure she reaches her orgasm. We're focusing on women right now. So that sexual flush is reddening of the skin. So you're looking for that too. We're in the excitement phase / arousal phase. But it also goes into the plateau phase. So late in the excitement, you'll see it late in the excitement phase, increasing throughout the plateau phase, and usually peaking at orgasm. So you see that redness peak at the orgasm phase. Pupil dilation. So the pupils dilate. You're not going to really see it. It's dark, but it's something that opens up, and it happens even before the arousal phase. Right? So these are things you're looking for. Remember, take note. You have to avidly look for these signs and symptoms so that you know what is going on and what phase she's going into to increase the likelihood of her getting that orgasm. Don't forget, that's the game plan. Remember, go back to our previous talk. You've got to get this in your system to be able to understand how to make your partner get that orgasm, right? Involuntary and voluntary body movements, right? That's the increase in body tension. So those muscles, they get tense. And you'll see the face, you'll see the abdomen, and the intercostal muscles get tense. And that is part of what they call the involuntary and voluntary movements, because the body starts to move. You start seeing the person moving, and the muscles are involuntarily doing that, and sometimes they're voluntarily doing that. Now, that is usually seen in the plateau phase. So we're going to talk about the plateau phase in a second. We're still in the excitement phase because we didn't finish it up last time. Now, voluntary contractions is different from involuntary and voluntary body movements. All right. So we're going to the voluntary contractions of the rectal sphincter. We already know that the rectal sphincter is going to contract. Not in all women, but in some. It is an important part of stimulation for some women. Again, not in all. All right. Take note of that. And that will happen at any time, again, in the excitement phase and the plateau phase for women if it happens. Hyperventilation, that means breathing quickly, breathing very rapidly, happens again as you're getting into the plateau phase from the excitement phase. So just take note of that. You're going to see the person breathe more rapidly. You have to see these symptoms and signs. Heart rate goes up, continuous increase from baseline level, and it can go up to 170 beats per minute and all the way up to, again, the orgasm, right? When it then comes back down. Blood pressure goes up and it continues from resting level. It can go up as many as 20 to 60 millimeters of mercury on the systolic number. So you can go up all the way up to 60 millimeters. So you got to be careful. Your blood pressure is high. You don't want to get it into the trouble with that. And also the bottom number, which is the diastolic number, can go up to 10 to 20 millimeters of mercury. And that can, again, go high. So be careful. As long as you don't have high blood pressure, please note your blood pressure. I am big into blood pressure. Make sure you know your blood pressure in general. And if you're not aware of it, go get it checked and see a doctor like me that takes care of blood pressures and is overly protective with your blood pressure and OCD with blood pressure. So that's what, again, the Donald Lambert and Quick talk about in their book. So I wanted to make sure I finished off that description. Now, there are a few other things I wanted to want you to take note of. The vagina, which I mentioned before, does tend and it lengthens, and the width of the inner, the upper 2/3 of the vagina expands, that's the tenting, and the outer, the lower 1/3 of the vagina becomes congested and full of blood, and will also have the bulbs of the clitoris circling around it, that lower 1/3, and grip the penis if the penis is inside the vagina to cause extra um, contractions and sensations and pleasure to both partners, right, at that point. And it happens in the late arousal stage going into the plateau stage. Earlobe sensitivity. Earlobe, one second. Earlobe sensitivity and engorgement occurs. Okay, so this is extra stuff I'm giving you. They get swollen and sensitive and can actually make people orgasm. So just be aware of that. The earlobes are very sensitive for some people, not for everybody. Last but not least, the cervix must be stimulated in some women by the male to get an orgasm. So note that also. The cervix has to be hit for some people. That means you have to be able to reach the cervix, depending on how long the lady is. I tell patients how to measure the length of your cervix. You can put a ruler up into the vagina, measure how long you are so that you know how long the penis should be. I tell people to do that all the time. And for width, you can put your fingers up, 2 fingers, index and middle finger, open up, see how wide it goes. Should not get too wide. If it gets too wide, that's too big. See a doctor like me that can help you. Do the Kegel exercises and make sure you're not too wide, because if you're too wide, then you're not going to be able to grip the penis as tightly as you'd like to, okay? So always know that sometimes that cervix has to be involved. All right, so I wanted to finish that off before going to the plateau phase, and I also wanted to tell you that there are ways of measuring arousal. And to measure the arousal, there are instruments. I'm not going to go into that. Instead, I want to focus on you recognizing simple signs and cues that your partner will be able to show you when they're getting aroused. Okay, very important. Now we're going into the plateau phase. The plateau phase for me is the key, the secret to the orgasm. All right, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit. And I want you to note here, right? So we're talking about the phases. We've just finished the arousal excitement phase, so we're done with that. So we're going now into the plateau phase. Communication is going to be key here, all right? Communication is central, key, important, necessary. Because if you don't communicate to your partner what you are experiencing, he is not going to be very, very sure of what to do. So this is where you're going to actually tell him or her what to do. All right, and I'll get there in a second. So remember, we're talking about the phases of sexual response. We just talked about the excitement and arousal. Now we're going into the plateau phase. What is the plateau phase? The plateau phase is the maximum, the highest, the peak level of excitement that you're going to experience during this phase. And you're going to be there, you're going to reach there, and you're going to be there for a while. How long depends on each individual person. I'll say it again. This is the heightened, the maximum level of excitement that you can reach. All right? So once you reach there, you can't go any higher. So you're going to stay there for a while. How long you stay there depends on you and your communication to your partner. So this is where you're going to have to say something to your partner for your partner to know you're there. Okay? Why? Because certain things happen in this phase, in the plateau phase, right? Increased sensitivity. Your body becomes so sensitive at this place of the plateau where you are actually in your erogenous zones, where they're stimulating your erogenous zones, you are actually super sensitive. So you have to communicate to your partner and tell your partner whether they should stay at that erogenous zone, stay, whether they should get faster at that erogenous zone in terms of stimulation, whether they should get slower, or whether they should move to a different erogenous zone. So again, this is where, depending on what's going on with you at that plateau stage, when you're fully aroused, your body is fully aroused, okay? You're just on fire. And you're like, oh my gosh, you tell your partner, stay, less, more, or over here. You change depending on what is going on within you, what you're feeling. And remember, as your sensitivity is increasing, you're like you don't want to stay there too long. If you stay there too long, you'll get dry. It'll fizzle out because your sensitivity will be hypersensitive now. You don't want to be hypersensitive. You don't want to have too much stimulation. You want to have enough just to take you to your orgasm, right? So that plateau phase is where communication to your partner is key. If you cannot communicate to your partner and tell your partner, hey, hold on, stay right where you are, or a little bit more, or a little bit less, or that's too much, or continue, or let's do over here, and you move the arms over here, or you move the fingers, whatever he's doing. You ask him to move if he doesn't understand, or you do it yourself so he can get the cue from you, all right? But very important for you to know that you're hypersensitive, you're completely full of arousal, okay? And of course, blood flow is going all over you, right? So we're getting all that blood flow, and all this is contributing to your sexual tension. Sexual tension is that pressure you feel like something's going to happen, you want to explode. That's your sexual tension, and that's all part of the muscles, right? So the muscles are getting more tense. The muscles of your pelvic area, your whole body is getting tense. Some people the legs, some people the hands, some people the face, some people the feet are getting very tense, okay? So it all depends. Some people curl their toes, right? Not everybody. Some people curl their toes. Some people stiffen their legs, right? As they're getting into that maximal state of stimulation. So that is very important to see how long you're going to be there. Very important to know whether you're going to stay there for how long. And how you're going to know is communication. So you went from excitement, right, from that stage of stimulation, the different erogenous zones, to now a place where you're on a particular erogenous zone or one or two, and that is where you stay there, and you are going to stay there as the orgasm starts to build. But you're in the plateau phase, and she will tell you, or he will tell you, she will tell you whether you are getting, whether she's getting there or not, meaning she'll say, stay, go, leave, don't touch, move, do this. She has to communicate to you. All right, ladies, you've got to communicate. All right. So that maximal tension, that sexual tension is there. The heart rate's going to go up. Your respiration, your breathing is going to go fast. You're going to be breathing. And remember, your partner can see this. Partners look out for that. Breathing going rapid, heart rate going rapid. You are going to get some cues, some visible cues. She might say nothing. She might say, keep quiet. She might start talking out of her mind, just going rambling, saying anything that she wants to say because she's losing some inhibitions. She's actually becoming freer to talk with you and freer to be more vulnerable and more emotional with you. So this is that phase where you're going to listen very carefully to what she's saying. Now, the cues are going to be things like clenching, right? Or gripping. She might grip something tight. Nails, that's where you guys get nails and scratches going, right? She might grip, she might clench her teeth, she might clench her legs, she might do something that just makes something rigid, one of her muscles rigid or some of her muscles rigid. She might grab you, she might hold you, she might hug you, all depends on each person. And another thing you will see in a verbal cue that someone's getting closer to that orgasm, getting again in that plateau phase where you want her to be, is trembling. So they might tremble, all right? Or they might snap their head back, or they might visibly start telling you things that, ordinarily they don't say. So all these things you have to find out in each person. Again, they might be silent. So you have to, again, watch her breathing, watch her heart rate, right? And watch redness if you can. And that reminds me, you have to have some moonlight, all right? If you do this in the dark, I don't think you can see all these signs. Someone asked me that question. Yes, you have to have a little light. I like to have the curtains or the blinds open so that you can let some moonlight in, if it's in the evening, whatever. You don't get a flashlight. Someone asked me about a flashlight. No, you don't get a flashlight and take a look. All you want to do is observe as much as you can. And each time you have that relationship with the person, you're going to get more familiar with the signs and more familiar with what she's doing, so that you'll get better each time. So don't worry, you might not get it on the first time. Be patient. It does take time. This is not something that you're going to learn overnight, which is the pleasure of being with a partner. They get to know you slowly, surely. But if they actually step into the role of observing these signs and these cues, that will be very helpful in terms of getting you there much faster. Okay. So you are there given those cues, and that will also help. Now, remember, the sensitivity is there, and you're going to get that high sensitivity, and you're going to communicate whether it's working or not. And so you stay on that erogenous zone, whatever it is, whether it's the clitoris, the vulva, the neck, the earlobes, whatever it is, the nipples. You got to stay on it. And if she says stay there, you stay. She says change, you change. Again, communication is key. So for all y'all that are not communicating, it ends now. You must communicate in this stage of the plateau before we get to the orgasm. All right. Now, if you stay, you'll start seeing altered state of consciousness. She starts to lose where she is. Time, space, place becomes irrelevant. They're not aware of where they are. They start losing even you. They start disconnecting from you in the sense of they don't really want to focus on you right now. They're focusing on themselves and going into that altered state of consciousness, which I will talk about in our orgasm phase, which is the next phase. All right. And then we'll talk about the resolution phase too. But right now, I'm going to say it. Take home point. The number one take home point is communication is central, key, important, necessary at the plateau phase, where you are maximally stimulated, you are excited. The end of the excitement phase, that means there's no more excitement. You're ending here, you're plateauing, you're at your peak, and you got to stay on that area that is exciting, stimulating, increased sensitivity, and making you turn into someone that is about to have an orgasm, where everything, the chemicals are being released, and you are actually going to now hopefully go into an altered state and the orgasm, which we'll talk about on my next talk, which will be tomorrow. Okay, guys? Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow. Ciao.